Yo, welcome, gentle people. So here we are, Boruto episode 289, and we continue the adaptation of the Code Assault arc. I believe today we should be seeing the events of chapter 59 of the Boruto manga unfold on this episode, so that should be interesting to take in for manga readers. You know that what that means. Daemon should be in this episode. The Code arc has been going on okay so far. They've kind of, well, not even kind of, they've left out a few scenes here and there, like a 5 Kage Zoom call, and there was supposed to be an interaction between Boruto and Naruto. So I don't know. It's been okay so far, but for the most part, let's see how the how the adaptation continues. Of course, if you're new here, be sure to rate, comment, subscribe. The cliche YouTube Jazz and Blues return subscriber. Shout out to you guys. Of course, we're on our way to 2,000 subs, so you don't know how it go already. Hope you guys are having an awesome Sunday, and let's get right into this. All right, little Kawaki. Ooh. I actually like how that white Karma looks, not gonna lie. Ooh, I like how that shot looked, and the sense of like rage and jealousy on Koet's face. That looks really good. Amado starting to play his psychological, tactic here, even though it's a fact. Bombas! No, bro, look back. Handback. I just how disrespectful the handback look. Oh, title drop. Looking back on this scene, there's such brilliance in Amado's psychological tactics here. Even though he's not lying and telling the truth, it's just brilliant based on what Amado's trying to achieve in the long run. Honestly. Yo, Bug just stressed right out, honestly, dog. The man just want them to cut. I mean, good question. I mean, you can't bedazzle them. The strongest person, well, the second strongest person in the verse. Nah, man, hold on there. Like, may I look upon it? No. Why? Shikadai, yo. Like the changing color, the changing them clothes. It just look. No, it looked sick to me. Yeah, it looks sick to me. Man, just look fresh. Like, man, look fresh, like brand new. I guess Truman are really used to seeing Shikadai in these clothes, but yeah, it looked fresh. That plus, there's a change in this scene, because it was just Shikadai. Chotro and Inojin weren't in this scene in the manga, so interesting change there. Himawari training. Well, this is a big change. I don't know how I feel about that scene. It's a good scene, but sorry, I feel like, I don't know, it feels like it's a bit of backtracking. Because I think Boruto at this point has already resolved himself to move forward and do what he needs to do. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. It feels like backtracking, I suppose. But I guess with what they've been setting up with the anime version of this, so I guess it fits. So, I guess I'll roll with it. Yes, sir. The house still exists. Well, bro, I might have already done so. Yeah, is that all there is to it, dog? You're sus. There must be something else, right? Here we go. The man, the myth, well, the boy, the myth, the legend. Jano. Oh, friends. And, but yes, it's not my type. So why just rough for code? Shadow, cool, just look depressed, dog. And then this OST. Ooh. Ooh. Stop it. Looking mischievous as expected. Ow. Like, it would be so embarrassing, but just to imagine that this kid, honestly, I imagine that there's a lot of manga readers here watching this reaction, but just the fact that this man is like way stronger than Madara, it's crazy. Naruto just here reading the paper. Another new scene here. I really like how, you know, sad he is about this situation and the expression on his face there. Alright, here we go. I think this should be part of chapter 60. Wait, what on there? Nice interaction here between Kawaki and Himawari. Ooh. They're moving full speed ahead into the forest. Ah, yes. Yes, sir! The preview! Woo-hoo! We are here! Hey! Presents! Alright guys, welcome to the review segment here for Boruto episode 289, and wow, like I just double checked it before, you know, hitting the record button here again, but they actually went through the events of chapters 59 and 62 chapters. So interesting pacing when it came on to this episode of the Boruto anime. Now, as we see in this episode, we have a heavy focus on the mindset and mentality of Kawaki as it stands right now in relation to the whole quote situation and protecting Naruto. And we do have interesting set of tidbits where it comes on to Boruto Uzumaki and how he's feeling for the most part, as well as the major introduction of another major character in the form of Eida's brother Daemon. And the antagonistic roster just keeps growing, doesn't it? But for the most part, this was another okay to, you know, this episode. The art in some spots seemed a bit off, especially like I think like in the Daemon sections it was a bit but for the and the animation was nothing to like write home about either. But I think they're of course saving the budget, and you know, when I say budget, it's not just money, but in terms of the time they'll be spending on, you know, making things look really good art and animation wise. They're saving it for the fight scenes that are that are coming up when it comes on to manga readers know. So yeah, but let's kind of dissect the episode, right? So of course we start off with, you know, Kawaki dreaming and having a nightmare where it comes on to Code, and naturally this shows us much more into Code's character in terms of how he's had this devotion and commitment to Isshiki, or just the Otsutsuki in general, from before, from a long time since he was small. And it makes me actually interested into like finding out, we need more on Code. What made him get to this point of devoting himself to the Otsutsuki that much? You know, I'm just saying it's borderline like obsessive. So it makes me really interested in actually seeing where this devotion comes from. But at the same time, it does act to reinforce and emphasize his devotion to them, and at the same time emphasize that, yo, this guy, he's not gonna stop. He's going to actually go through with his quote unquote revenge. He'll definitely want that. He won't be convinced otherwise. Similarly to how Eida in this episode was trying to say, yo, could you spare the Hokage? He's like, no fam, I'm going to do that. And I think even though it was a dream, that really sets the bar to really emphasize how serious Code is about this. So a bit of characterization there, our emphasis, our re-emphasis on the characterization, which I really appreciate. And even just how he was shown in the close-up shot of Kawaki's eye in the dream, you can see the as I said, the rage and jealousy of Kawaki being, you know, the chosen vessel at the time. So I definitely like that tidbit. Of course, we have Amado in this episode talking to Kawaki about the reality of the situation of being Isshiki's vessel. And honestly, again, as a manga reader, this is like me kind of analyzing the episode in retrospect, because even though, and I said it through the reaction, even though he does not lie, he hasn't lied throughout this entire episode. He's telling the complete truth. Well, you know, bar some information he hasn't really committed to telling Sumire, because as he says, it's a personal matter. But it's just the fact of the matter that it's such a psychological move, such a psychological tactic on Amado's part, especially given what he's already put in place. So yeah, it's really interesting, and I it also speaks volumes in terms of Amado's character, in terms of it maintains that air of sussiness, like he's just suspect, you know. So it kind of helps to keep you engaged in terms of what he's up to at this point in the story, where it feels like Kishimoto is feeding us breadcrumbs when it comes down to what's really going to happen. It's like a tactic to keep us, the audience, engaged, and I do appreciate that, even though the suspense, I believe, is killing a lot of persons, especially if you're an anime only, honestly. So I did like that. But of course, as Amado says, we break down the fact that, you know, Kawaki is still quote unquote, you know, Ishiki's vessel. While he can't necessarily come back and take over Kawaki's body, but the fact of the matter is that Ishiki's DNA did extract into Kawaki up to about 80%, and as Amado explained it, even though the karma acts as a door, and even though the homeowner isn't there anymore, the door can be reconstructed to access Ishiki's power. So that seems like a nice, you know, tidbit that would be useful for Kawaki going into the future. So it's going to be interesting to see how that actually, you know, goes, or basically unfolds. But the potential of that is enormous, because we saw how powerful Isshiki is, and if Kawaki can tap into any percentage of that power, that speaks volumes to how where Kawaki's potential growth could go if he gets back this karma. So that's the interesting thing I think persons need to really analyze and look at, that can easily skyrocket Kawaki from a power scaling standpoint to one of the strongest persons in the verse. Anything beyond what was in the in Naruto, or the fourth grade ninja war, essentially. So that's the interesting tidbit of it. The potential of it is, it adds to the engagement and just keeping helping the audience to stay tuned. If I couldn't put it any other way, that's basically it. So yeah, but as the episode goes on, or overall when it comes on to episode, to facilitate the changes that have been made when it comes on to the anime adaptation and even the anime only type of arcs and interactions between the characters, we do have some changes here and there when it comes on to dialogue, when it comes on to scenes, and when it comes on to certain characters interacting in this episode. For example, I don't think Amado made mention, like how it was mentioned in chapter 59, of him commenting on Kawaki's plan to implant Boruto's Karma code. Of course, when it comes on to Shikadai and Chocho and Inajin being there in the manga, it was just Shikadai coming out to Kawaki when he was walking in the streets. The interactions with Himawari in this episode, when it comes on to Boruto and Himawari, definitely new. Kawaki and Himawari at the end, definitely new. But we'll get to them. But I just wanted to point that out. So of course we get to see Kawaki's mindset in this episode, that he's kind of struggling with him actually being in the village based on what Amado was saying, and the fact that the Naruto's lost the Nine Tails, and Kawaki isn't 100% confident that Naruto is going to survive this confrontation with Code. So I like that tidbit about this episode as well, because it kind of adds to it lays the foundation for the next move that Kawaki is going to make, essentially, which is what he was hinting at the end of this episode of, there's still something I can do. I don't need karma. But based on all his interactions with Amado in this episode, and the fact that he doesn't believe that Naruto can actually defeat Code, and his desperation of trying to solve the scenario himself, it's going to add to what Kawaki is going to do next. So it was a nice foundation when it comes on to this episode. Now, and of course, the addition of Chocho and Inajin, it kind of feels like the anime adaptation, apart from just factoring in the anime only type of materials just to make it seem like a seamless experience when it comes on to the anime. But adding Chocho and Inajin into the scene, it feels like an attempt to make it, how should I say, build up, because how should I put it, it feels like an attempt to build up their involvement in the coming conflicts that much more, make them, give them something to do, make them involved, involve them for a payoff that's going to happen, making an upcoming payoff that's, well, it hasn't really happened in the manga yet, but it's to come. But it feels like they're involving them more for that eventual payoff in this arc, and of course making the art feel more dynamic. So I found that interesting, apart from Shikadai's fresh clothes. But yeah, so that's interesting. So it feels like they're adding it for a more payoff with these characters, which, interesting stuff. But of course, we have Boruto in this episode as well. I know in the reaction, I'm gonna say I kind of feel like they're backtracking, because that scene with him talking to Himawari, and Himawari training, which I like, but Himawari asking him to spar with her, and him saying, yo, no, and he's kind of freaking out about the potential of the karma. It kind of felt like backtracking to me, because even though in the manga at this point, yeah, Boruto was still kind of worried about it, and all of that is like, like, I don't know. Especially after last episode, after the whole tidbit, the training session with Kawaki, it kind of felt like he made up his mind. Based on how they did it in the anime, it felt like he kind of made up his mind to move forward and stop, do what he has to do, even though he was still worried about it in the manga. But I guess, realistically, persons don't really change their mind on things that easily, so I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I like it, but I'm 50-50 on it all the same. So yeah, there was that. And it does set the ground for, that interaction that we have at the end there with Himawari worrying about Kawaki and asking, Kawaki to really do what he has to do to, look after Boruto. And of course, that translates into Kawaki doing things his way. So it kind of adds that additional layer, I believe, when it comes on to the events that are to come in the manga. Well, in the manga too, but that have to come in this arc when they adapt it. Honestly, it kind of adds that extra weight, I believe, in the grand scheme of things. So I definitely like that. These are the type of scenes I like them adding when it comes on to, adapting the manga and adding extra stuff to add that extra weight, kind of flesh things out more, make things feel like they will have a better payoff, or essentially better build up and payoff. These are the things I like, as opposed to I mentioned it in last week's review, when it comes on to the first episode of this arc, where it legitimately felt like padding, right? These extra scenes in this episode felt more organic, if you guys understand what I'm saying here. Hopefully. So yeah, I definitely love those tidbits in this episode. Of course, we go towards the end of the episode with Naruto coming for Kawaki and him continuing to worry about the whole situation of belonging in the village and everything, and just coming home to that family dinner, and Boruto giving him a new headband. Of course, the changes in dialogue continue, because they're factoring in the anime continuity. In the manga, it was more along the lines of, "Yo, I'm not a shinobi, yada yada yada." The dialogue is changed a bit. Anybody interested, you can definitely go back to Boruto chapter 60 if you want to see the changes here and there. But they've really changed the dialogue, not 100%, but just to at least accommodate the anime continuity. So that's just something to continue to note when it comes on to this episode. But interestingly enough, again, they're speeding along chapters 59 and 60. So wow. And based on the preview, of course, we're going into the section of the arc where most persons are looking forward to the most, honestly. But even though I believe they've sped along, they've omitted some scenes from these last 3 episodes. It's not a lot of scenes, but when it comes on to the build-up that we've had in these last 3 episodes, we're going to start seeing it unfold as of episode 290. So that's the praise I will give these episodes, especially this episode when it comes on to, as I said, Kawaki's mindset, belonging in the village, doing what he believes exploring the option that he feels that he can, do to save Naruto. Let's put it like that at this point, given his state of power. But at the same time, Amado's I've tried not to spoil it too much. I'm just trying to find the right words. But yeah, in terms of Amado, between Amado and what they've built up with him in these episodes, you'll see in retrospect Kawaki right now and the action that he's going to take going into the next episode based on the events and what they've built up with his interactions in this episode and his inner feelings and how he feels about Karma and his interactions with Amado, and that's going to be pulled off. Boruto, whew. And just so much to look forward to. So for the most part, this episode is an episode I think persons will retroactively, or not retroactive, but in retrospect, look back and say, "Oh, no matter what rating you give it, you'll have to give this episode a higher rating once certain events play out going forward." So yeah, honestly, a decent episode. I love the foundation and the additional material that they're doing when it comes on to episode 289 of the Boruto anime. So yeah, but anyway, I've rambled on long enough. So yeah, so art, animation, nothing to really write home about. But at the same time, I imagine they're saving it for the events to come. In terms of just setting a foundation for the events to come when it comes on to Kawaki and Amado and Boruto, and based on their interactions with the other characters they've had, such as Himawari and Code in this episode, and then of course the matter of Eida, Daemon, and Code in this episode, kind of re-emphasizing the threat that we have to deal with when it comes on to especially this new character Daemon. Lots of things to look forward to. We're building. So yeah, of course I want to know what you guys think about the faster pacing, because I know, especially since it's a monthly manga, when we're going through this stretch of chapters, it's like yeah, we're building towards something, we're setting the foundation, but a lot of persons found it to be really slow. But let me know, what do you think about the anime version of this versus the manga? So yeah, anyway, Sanjay Uchiha here. I've rambled on long enough, I'm sure. I'll see you in the next Boruto anime review. Of course, the end of month subscriber stream will be on Tuesday, so look forward to it, and I'll see you in the next one.